And of course, the manufacturing sector is another sector that took a hit from the coronavirus pandemic. The sector's growth contracted by minus 8.78% in the second quarter of 2020 from 0.43% in the first quarter of the year and 0.13% in the second quarter of 2019. Well, to speak more to the data is the Acting Director General of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Mr. Ambrose Oruche. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Oruche.
Thank you for having us.
Well, you've been listening to that conversation. I want to start with that electricity issue because it affects you and your members. So what's your take in all of these initiatives that the federal government has just come up with in the electricity sector?
Yeah, from our side, because we always have been agitating for status quo in terms of price, although the discourse most times will talked about cost-reflective tariff. Yes, we had discussions with discourse in the March period before the pandemic really took over, and we insisted that, look, we can't pay for darkness. That does not mean that we'll pay higher tariff. Until you give us light, we'll now see the light, we can now pay. We can't pay on promise because we don't know, there is no strategy that this promise will be achieved. There's nothing on ground to show us that this promise that you are making, that when we pay higher tariff, we'll get light. We have not seen it. That's why we insisted that, that they were not going to pay higher tariff. It's supposed to take effect in April, but the National Assembly came and said January. We are surprised that they are going to implement it in September. It was
for you, it came as a surprise.
Yes.
And how do you think that would impact businesses for you?
We are talking about GDP, contribution of manufacturing to GDP, which has been dropping. And now the price of electricity is now going to go up. You and I know that once that's done, the price of goods will go up because the producers will not absorb all this price. And what will happen, the consumers will not be able to purchase because inflation will go up. And then in the process, many of manufacturing companies will shut down. Don't forget that from our studies, energy is about 40% of the input used in some sectors of the manufacturing. So if you are increasing the price of 40% of the cost of the production, that means that the price of the product will go up, definitely. And there is an irony in this Nigeria electricity tariff, where the higher you consume, the higher tariff you pay. Instead of the higher you consume, the lower, taking advantage of economic of scale. That is not happening in the MAN we are implementing. So those that consume higher energy pay higher. They subsidize the ones for residential, and that shouldn't be, And we have been clamoring for a reversal that the more you consume, the less your tariff should be.
Now, well, we know, talking about looking inwards now, yes, the metering thing. Meters are imported, and here we have issues of foreign exchange, which has also impacted manufacturing businesses, which, of course, led to this contraction that we saw in the second quarter of the year. Do your members have the capacity to actually produce or manufacture these meters here rather than import?
Yeah, our members have the capacity. Capacity is built over a period of time. Now, I read from, I think yesterday, that government is going to waive the 35% adjustment tax on meter for people to bring a meter. That's a discouragement. It is incentives for manufacturers of meter locally. Why not give these people funds to be able to produce the required number of meters that is needed by Nigerian consumers instead of importing? We are talking about unemployment level. So what we are doing now is to import poverty to Nigeria and export employment. So let's encourage local manufacturers so that they can build more capacity, employ more people, and be able to satisfy the disco's demand for meter. We have so many of them, and more are coming up to meet, because once you incentivize some, more investors will come in.
Okay, now we know that the lockdown issues and all that are part of the issues that affected the manufacturing GDP for the second quarter. Now, resuming operations after the lockdown, manufacturers have had to deal with a new normal. So what changed in your operation, for instance, where you source your raw materials?
Well, let me still let you know that not all manufacturers have come back fully, because the curfew is still there, 10 to 4. That means that not all of them can operate their machine within the time allowed, because some machines have to run consistently throughout the 24 hours if you want to break even from your production. So what happens that those ones have not yet come to operation. They are still waiting for the curfew to be lifted, And you also agree with me that curfew prevented the hospitality industry from operating, and that is affecting those that are dependent on hospitality industry to patronize them, for them to continue to remain in business. So be that as may, having said that, I will look at looking inwards is not what you do overnight. It's a process that you have to start somewhere. And it takes funds for you to backward integrate. And it takes, for you to be incentivized to backward integrate, government has to come in. What is government putting on the table? Today we are talking about the capacity of cement has increased greatly. What did government do? Government incentivized those that are importing cement then, and then ask them, come back and start producing while we give you license to import for a period of time, and then from there you build their capacity. Many of them jump into it and they build their capacity. Today we are talking about becoming exporter of cement and no longer net importer of cement. The same thing can happen if we want a backward integration. It's not what you do overnight. It has to be a process. You have to have a timeline. You have to plan towards that. And then don't forget that most of the raw materials producers overseas, have is in commercialized quantity. Can we produce in commercialized quantity in Nigeria? Who will patronize? It becomes difficult for some of the raw materials we produce here. That's the challenge.
Now, of course, another issue is the issue of the foreign exchange. We'll see what is happening. There. How have you been dealing, with that?
It's a major challenge. I must tell you, it's a major challenge. And if nothing is done in the next quarter, many industries will shut down because many cannot get the raw materials because Forex is not there. Imagine a company that bidded for $20 million and was given $2,000. What will you do with that? It's not how many trenches of that will you go to be able to import your raw materials to remain in business. So we are asking central bank, like we did in 2016-17, we have recession. Central bank prioritize, give 60% of the Forex available to manufacturers. That's why we are asking that system, that policy be returned back. Let manufacturers have 60% of the Forex available for them to import their raw materials. In this way, it will encourage them to continue keeping the employment and also employ more people, like what I'm...
Yeah. Okay, yeah, the central bank recently placed a ban on FX payment to third parties from M. Yeah, and your members are kicking against that. Why?
Well, I think in that aspect, the discussions are ongoing with the central bank on how to resolve the issue. I will not say much about that policy because we are discussing, hopefully.
Now that the CBN has already now announced the resumption of exchange rate sale to BDCs, how is that going to impact your businesses?
Yeah, small-scale people can now have access to Forex at official rates, to transact business of $20,000, $10,000, sort of. So there is going to boom. Business is going to come back for the micro industries to continue being in business. It's a good development because it will also reduce the pressure on Forex, on Naira, because at a black market, 475, 480, is not the best for the economy. So selling to the BDC will now bring down the cost at least to 386 or 390 thereabouts.
Now, the land border has remained closed, and of course, many.
I expected the question.
Yeah, many have been calling for its reopening.
Yeah.
What's the position of M.A.N?
Well, when you analyze the issue of the land border, it's over a year now that the land border was closed. You will see it has a mixed view of performance. Some say it's good for them. Some say it's not. It's affected them negatively. Now, what we are saying is, look, we need to review the entire thing. Have we achieved the purpose the border was shut down in the first instance? If not, let's open the border, because border closure is not sustainable over a period of time. You know, also you will agree with me that AFCTA will take off in January, and most of the goods Nigeria will export through the border. Nigeria will also import through the border. The border closure has impacted on exporters. That's why we are having more challenge we're having on Forex. It's also impacted importers that import raw materials from our neighboring countries like Ghana, Togo, and the rest of them. They can bring in. If you want to take it through the ship, through the sea, air, is expensive. Through the ship, what takes you an average of 6 hours to get it to Nigeria will take you 8 weeks. If you have to take it through the air, the cost is more than 10 times what it ought to be through the road. That's why we're asking government, let's review this land border. It's not helping. It's not what can be sustained over a period of time. There's need to review it and put measures to checkmate what we wanted to achieve before. If it's smuggling, yes, what measures can we do to stop the smugglers? You know, all this has to be discussed among the stakeholders.
Now, in all of these, what is the outlook really for the sector?
For the third quarter, the outlook is still very negative. It will still come down low because you have mentioned policies in the economy that is affecting manufacturers negatively. You know, as long as these policies are allowed to continue, you know, things will continue to go bad. I'm not a prophet of doom, but, you know, but looking at it, forecasting it, you discover that it will not get better. You know, when you can't get Forex to import your raw materials, you know, which cannot be developed overnight in the country, and the rest of them. Then the tariff issue that is going up in September will also impact negatively on manufacturing performance.
Yeah. Now, your CEO's confidence index for the first quarter of the year fell below the 50-point benchmark. Do you think the manufacturing sector needs a kind of a lifeline to recover? And if yes, what sort of lifeline should
we are talking about bailouts. We need bailout funds to survive.
Like how much?
We don't need intervention funds. What we need is bailout, grants, you know, for them to continue remaining in business. You know, some of them are finding it difficult to pay workers. They are finding it difficult to pay. Why not government come in and says, okay, for 6 months from April to, let's take off your employees' salaries as a bailout funds for you. So I continue to be in business. You know, we have not determined the quantum of money we need, but we need bailout. Intervention comes with interest. And we have many of them cannot access the CBN intervention fund because they have overhang of debt with other commercial banks. So what happened
we had the 100 billion naira, the 50 billion. How much of that did your members?
Well, for the 50 billion was for SMEs and households. Our members did not participate. Well, we didn't get much from it.
There are some manufacturers, of course, that are within that
small
and medium enterprises.
Even those that we send the applications through us, we are not granted. They didn't get. Because we have a business unit that compile the list of the members that are in need of such low amount of 25 million, and we send to the microfinance bank. They didn't honor it. So the 100 billion for pharmaceutical and the healthcare, I think our pharmaceutical companies are getting it. Then the 1 trillion is the one we are looking forward to when government begins to disburse, because that's where many of manufacturers that needed huge capital for diversification, for retooling, and then for change of production line will benefit much.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Oruche, for coming on the program.
Thank you for inviting us.
Ambrose Oruche is the Acting Director General of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we do an opening call to London, and of course, back here, we look at the markets. Do stay with us.